Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, as of right now in the manga, Luffy is fighting Kizaru, and I think that it's fair to say that power scalers are going wild. And honestly, nobody is surprised, because the Admirals are one of the most hyped up characters in the story, and their strengths is one of the most hotly debated topics. People want to know if Admirals are really top tiers in the world. Top tiers meaning as strong as the very strongest individuals. Can an Admiral fight a legitimate one-on-one versus a Yonko? Presuming that the Yonko, at least the original four, were roughly equal, which is itself debatable. But I'm sure that you guys already know, there are a ton of technicalities. We might address some of these technicalities, right? It makes the whole discussion very convoluted. Take Whitebeard as an example. We know that Whitebeard was very old. He was past his prime for sure. We also know that he was sick, and he sustained injuries not really related to the battle against the Marines. So because of this, it allows people to disregard what actually occurred in Marineford. Akainu seemed to fight roughly on par with Whitebeard. Ultimately, Whitebeard got his face blown off, so Akainu won. But is this how you roughly power scale the level of an Admiral to a Yonko? Certainly you could try to do it, but you will meet very heavy resistance. And I agree with this resistance. Akainu beating Whitebeard does not make Admirals as strong as Yonko. So this is what makes Luffy vs. Kizaru potentially different. In my opinion, Luffy right now is Yonko level. He legitimately defeated Kaido. You can throw out excuses, and people do. The simple fact for me is concluding every battle, Luffy grows. Perhaps Kaido was unlucky, perhaps Luffy unveiled his plot no me. But if they redueled, Luffy would win again. That is how I feel. So now Luffy is Yonko level, and that makes him a measuring stick. So you could potentially draw conclusions from this battle. In the pre-time skip, it was portrayed that all of the Admirals were rough equals. Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. We have heard of a duel between Akainu and Aokiji that was clearly very close to a stalemate. So it is assumed based on portrayal that Kizaru is of the same level. And so because of this, people are saying that this debate will finally be settled. This fight will forever change the perception of Admirals in the story. No pressure, Kizaru, you just gotta bear this flag alone. So yeah guys, this is what people are saying, and honestly, I disagree quite a lot. I'm not disagreeing that people are gonna use this battle as some sort of power scaling source material, because we all have that to look forward to. But I would argue that you probably shouldn't, and I've got some reasons. But far less debated as Admirals vs. Yonko is the question of which VPN is best. And the very obvious answer to this question is the sponsor of today's video, Atlas VPN. It's 2023 guys, VPNs are essential. It's like the power of Kuma's paw fruit wrapped into a convenient, easy to use program. If you could go on vacation, where would you go? With Atlas VPN, it is literally wherever you want, whenever you want. Don't let internet armament hockey stop you from doing what it is that you really want to do. Netflix thinks they're smart to region lock certain content, but they have greatly underestimated our powers. And Atlas VPN has an incredible deal. 3 years, $1.83 per month. Plus an extra 3 months because why not? All the while having access to one of the most broken devil fruits in the entire universe. Straight up guys, this is one of the best VPN deals on the market. It is insanely affordable and insanely easy to use. You can unlock your favorite content from all over the world. You can keep your Google searches private and get more organic search results. All the while stopping ads and malware and finding the best deals on the market. Oh yeah, you can do this on unlimited devices with just one subscription. So using the link in the description, power up with Atlas VPN today. Honestly, I just feel like starting here because this is a question unto itself. Were all the Yonko equal? What does Yonko level even mean? I've been accused of being a Shanks fanboy, and I guess that that's probably true, but the man literally was not looking for the One Piece for the vast majority of the time that he was a Yonko. Suddenly he says, let's do it, let's go find it. And you know it's going to happen within the span of the next couple weeks or months. I honestly think that he could have done it all along if he really wanted. And to me, this portrayal means a lot. And honestly, I have the same impression of Whitebeard. Whitebeard had no interest in finding the One Piece. His treasure was his crew. He just wanted to protect them. And part of that was probably avoiding any large-scale wars against other Yonkos, regardless of whether or not they might have won. It straight up said that he guarded the throne, but chose not to sit on it. So in my opinion, and I understand that this is very controversial, but there's two tiers of Yonko. Shanks and Whitebeard, in my opinion, were above both Kaido and Big Mom. The only reason that the New World settled on for Yonko is because the three other most important factions allowed it. Whitebeard, Shanks, and the world government as a whole. This doesn't mean that I do not have great respect for both Kaido and Big Mom. Honestly, Big Mom's defenses, Totland, her islands, her children, she posed a very formidable defense. Even Roger back in the day didn't appear to declare direct war on Big Mom, but rather snuck in, took what he wanted, and left. For me, there's two real conversations to be had with the Big Mom pirates. Big Mom individually, and as a crew. In my opinion, any direct attack on her territory was very likely to result in significant casualties for whoever attempted it. I think that a legitimate argument can be made that Big Mom's pirate crew was stronger than other Yonko, in terms of sheer numbers and those numbers' power levels, in combination with their commitment and belief in Big Mom. Honestly, I think that Oda in a way exploited some of her weaknesses to bring her down in Wano. Like Whitebeard, I felt as though Big Mom and her crew were weaker than they once were. It was clearly demonstrated at the beginning of the Whole Cake Island arc. Big Mom is slowly picking off her children, and that affected their trust in her. We'll come back to this later in the video, but your belief in what you are fighting for, your desires, impact your strength. A character like Peckham's, in my opinion, demonstrates the before and after of the Big Mom pirates. He believed fully in what Big Mom stood for. However, Big Mom's neurotic tendencies test this faith, and ultimately in the case of this story, Big Mom is responsible for sabotaging her own pirate crew. While I would say that the effect of this has only been exacerbated over time and really come to a head in the current timeline, I do believe that she's been doing this for years. It's not the same straight up sickness that Whitebeard had, but Big Mom was sick, and that had an effect. Luffy was only able to escape with the poneglyph because of her rages, and this led to the second aspect of Big Mom's weaknesses Oda exploited. While great on the defense in her own territory where she may be able to lay traps, I think Big Mom was terrible on the offense, and this reared its head almost immediately as they stepped foot in Wano. Big Mom fell into Kaido's own trap, got separated from her crew, and without her, they were useless. Big Mom's oppressive leadership stunted her own crew's growth. So for me, there's a lot of asterisks about Big Mom as a Yonko. If you were to power scale her, it's complicated. Individually though, she's obviously very strong. And I suppose that this discussion about her crew largely misses the point of the debate we're trying to have, which is Yonko versus Admirals. Although I think it adds needed context. But yes, Big Mom is absolutely a freak. But I see her as a freak on the very same level as Kaido. They're equal. In my opinion, if the two fought to the death, neither could defeat the other. Which in my opinion is the impression we were given when Big Mom encountered Kaido in Wano. But I would just say that I see her as an incomplete fighter. And when comparing her to the other most strongest characters in the story, that's what starts to differentiate them. Ultimately, you have to win fights to be considered the best of the best. And Big Mom hasn't really done that. She simply remained a consistent obstacle for many that were better than her, more well-rounded. And I think that Kaido individually and the Beast Pirates as a crew are similar. Kaido's issue as a leader is that he rules by fear, so the people below him aren't really loyal, with the exception of his three incredibly powerful commanders. Leadership, like it or not, plays a role, both in terms of the crew's ability to survive, but also their ability to grow. But the one thing I will say about Kaido is, unlike Big Mom, I got the impression he was actually stronger when Luffy faced him in Wano than he was in the past. At the very least, this is true because he acquired Wano, which was an incredibly powerful nation, easily defensible, and he possessed Smile, which increased the power level of his whole crew. So there's like this distinction in my mind of Kaido and Big Mom as individual powerful entities, and then what would actually happen if they had an all-out war. But my opinion boils down to this. I think that both Kaido and Big Mom would be unable to defeat Prime, Whitebeard, or Shanks. But the reverse would not have been true. Ultimately, Kaido joined in an alliance with Big Mom for a reason. The alliance was necessary for him to be able to claim the treasure. The fact he could never and could not do it alone says something. And unlike Whitebeard and Shanks, it wasn't for lack of trying. I think someone like Kaido was heavily reliant on his defense. And it was pretty much revealed, look, Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the way to deal damage. In my opinion, it's straight up revealed that Odin would have been able to defeat Kaido 20 years in the past. Certainly Kaido thought it was possible, which is why he and Orochi went through the hassle of acquiring hostages. And even though Odin waited for a time and ultimately allowed Kaido to grow stronger in the interim, it was still suggested that Odin might have won his individual fight had it not been for a trick. And I get it, pirates, right? Tricks are fair play. But if we're adding Odin's soft heart into power scaling, that's too much for me. And in my mind, Odin is below Whitebeard and Roger, And as Shanks is kind of carrying Roger's energy right now, I apply that to Shanks. And for me, it makes a ton of sense for Shanks to, especially right now in the story, possess Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So he would have been able to damage Kaido, and eventually would have won. I'm absolutely sure that somebody in the comments is going to bring up, well, Kaido is the world's strongest creature, and a one-on-one bet on Kaido. And I think that these same people would buy pretty much anything that Big News Morgans would print in the newspaper. We've seen enough actual fighting and actual context to be able to draw a more accurate conclusion than these headlines. Kaido nurtured a reputation of being unkillable by essentially trying to kill himself. It just so happens, in my opinion, those that could actually do this chose not to. So convoluted or not, Yonko level to me means essentially Big Mom and Kaido level. Incredibly strong, but missing some fundamental things which would make them almost like perfect fighters. And then there's a tier above them which are essentially perfect fighters. So I just wanted to clearly establish my bias here. I understand that some people, many people, maybe disagree with this, but we'll come back to this at some point in the video. This is something that we've talked about ad nauseum over chapter reviews of the recent One Piece chapters, but it is abundantly clear that Kizaru is not really a candidate to possess Conqueror's Haki. Kizaru is not exerting his will, and I think that's the reason why we didn't see the heavens split when Luffy encountered him. I think that we'll know for sure at the conclusion of this battle, but when Kizaru says that he is a cog in the machine, I think that somebody with King's Haki simply wouldn't allow that. Now, the effect that Conqueror's Haki has on an actual fight is still ambiguous and subject to change. We've seen Shanks accomplish some things with Haki that we've never seen before. How this might have an effect in battles versus top tiers is not clearly established yet. But we do know for a fact that Conqueror's Haki allows for Advanced Conqueror's Haki, which allows you to damage Kaido and most likely Big Mom. So without it, I just can't imagine Kizaru would be able to hurt them. Maybe he could win in some devious way. But a straight up fair fight, I see both Big Mom and Kaido outlasting him. But I suppose even more important than this is what King's Haki really means. Power scaling in One Piece is its own beast because of the thematic choices that Oda has made for the story. The strongest people have the strongest desires or wills. Those with the strongest desires or wills are kings. Now, I am not saying that everybody with Conqueror's Haki would be able to defeat an admiral like Kizaru. You need some other strengths as well. A powerful devil fruit or maturing your own individual Haki and all of its various permutations. But in a battle between physical equals, somebody with the greater willpower will win. So in a way, this is how I define Kizaru. Kizaru is as top tier as you could possibly be, minus the absurd will associated with kings. And I just want to say that I am assuming that Kizaru possesses an awakening that he has not shown yet. He has perfect mastery of his broken devil fruit. I know that this is a theory, but it would be baffling to me if this was not the case. In a way, I think that he is very similar to Kaido. His devil fruit is simply broken, and this alone makes it almost impossible to defeat him. I would say that the reason why Kaido was able to ascend to his level is his devil fruit made it essentially impossible for the vast majority of the universe to deal any damage to him whatsoever. And as it appears to me, Kizaru possesses the speed version of the same concept. But if you clear that barrier and possess a greater desire to win, you will win. So is Kizaru Yonko level in my mind? No. He's as close as it is possible to be, but a notch below. So does that mean that we're ending this video early, right? Question is, Admirals on the same level as Yonko, power scaling them, have I derived my conclusion? Yeah, not really. And it is because of one very simple concept. Wills are not a static thing in the world of One Piece. A subtle aspect of Wano is Kaido's attempt to crush both Luffy and Kid's will. He said that there was already too many conquerors, but simultaneously aimed to recruit Kid. This also felt like a subtle aspect of Luffy's fight with Katakuri. Someone with King's Haki can be dethroned. And honestly guys, intuitively, to me this makes sense. Anecdotally, I can speak to how my strength of will changes on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year level. And I'm sure that many of you out there would agree. If suddenly every member of the Straw Hat crew died, I believe that Luffy would become a shell of what he is currently. What's actually happening in your life matters. The same thing potentially applies to Kizaru. Maybe at some point in the past he had a great desire to see the world government and the Marines succeed. This desire equates to will, and this will has a direct effect on strength. But over the years, this can potentially change. As we're seeing right now, Kizaru is tasked with killing his friend, Vegapunk. That would directly affect his desire to perform his duties as Admiral. Basically, guys, I think that the current circumstances that Kizaru is in only works to make him weaker than even what he was possibly a few weeks ago. But this same effect works in reverse. Things could happen, circumstances can change to strengthen your resolve. Personally, this is my opinion about Luffy. I don't think that Luffy always had Conqueror's Haki. I think that the journey strengthened his will. Luffy's personality merely made him a candidate to become a king. It wasn't that he always was one. And what I'm talking about here isn't necessarily skill with Haki. Vice Admirals can use armament, but there's individual levels to this. We saw this at the beginning of the Luffy and Katakuri fight. Luffy was using armament, Katakuri was using armament, but Katakuri's was better. But even over the course of this individual battle, this aspect of the fight changed. And in my opinion, it changed in proportion to each character's desire to win. But there's a reason that I bring all this up. The portrayal in Marineford and in the pre-time skip suggests that all three original admirals were of the same level: Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. But I think that since this point in time, Kizaru's story has been very different from both Aokiji and Akainu. Essentially, Kizaru has only gotten weaker, while both Aokiji and Akainu have gotten stronger. But let's take Aokiji as an example. In my opinion, it was very clear pre-time skip that Aokiji had a lot of doubts about the Marines as justice. Uncertainty about what you really want would obviously affect your will. Aokiji makes this big show of being lazy pre-time skip, but I don't actually think he was lazy at all. Instead, he was frozen, unable to decide what it is that he actually wanted. But Aokiji did want to believe in the government and in the Marines. This led to his duel with Akainu, where he knew that if Akainu won, then the Marines would become something that he absolutely could not support. And this, in my opinion, is where Aokiji and Kizaru diverge. I don't think that Kizaru really believes in what he's doing anymore, but he's still fighting on their side. He has bowed to the will of the government, but Aokiji did not do that. As Doflamingo tells us in chapter 699 at the conclusion of Punk Hazard, Aokiji Kuzan looks like somebody who has finally decided something. I think for all intents and purposes, Aokiji's real journey began after he left the Marines. He has actually become a pirate. He is pursuing what it is that he really wants. And because he wants it, this freedom and pursuit will make him stronger. So for me, guys, because of the character's current circumstances, Aokiji has surpassed Kizaru. They are no longer equals. And I believe that this same concept holds true for Akainu. Akainu becoming Fleet Admiral is a big deal, because he can mold the Marines as an organization into something that more closely resembles his own desires. Akainu has always believed in the Marines. I'm not sure that he believes in the world government, but he has always believed in the Marines. And I think that the power that he has to control them only strengthens this resolve. And honestly, I do not think that Akainu is done growing. Very interesting conversation with Aokiji is, yes, he's pursuing what he wants, but at what cost? I'm sure that that weighs on him. We saw recently in Hachinosu, Aokiji was forced to fight Garb. Even though he did it, I think that there is no way that that was what he wanted. And I think that so long as Aokiji is a member of the Blackbeard Pirates, there will consistently be circumstances which will be difficult for him. For me, this highlights the advantage of being captain. Aokiji is not captain. Therefore, what happens is not always going to be exactly what he desires, mostly due to philosophical differences between himself and Blackbeard. However, as Akainu becomes Fleet Admiral, he is captain of the Marines, if you see them as a pseudo-pirate group. And even if it isn't entirely true yet, I think that it will become the absolute truth. At what cost? The concept of this is different between the two characters. For Akainu, the cost of being Fleet Admiral and leading the Marines while pursuing what he wants is the fact that he acts as a pillar for the government and the Celestial Dragons. As he pursues individual justice, I believe that he supports an organization that he does not entirely believe in. And I think that Oda has been leading into this for hundreds of chapters now. When we see Akainu in the story, he is consistently butting heads with the Gorosei. They keep undermining him, and he has effectively remained subservient to their wills. So Captain of the Marines, yes, but also not really. But this, just like any other individual circumstances in the story, has the potential to change. In one of the recent chapters of Egghead, we see Akainu fight Kuma, and Oda pans to a celestial dragon present there. and highlights how intolerable these people are. Akainu believes in thorough justice. Essentially, his goal in life is to eradicate all things he perceives to be evil, and this would include the celestial dragons. This would become especially true if it is revealed that the celestial dragons have had a hand in and ultimately are a big player in the underworld. Stussy, a member of CP0, was an underworld emperor. Celestial dragons participate in the slave trade. Sometimes criminals, yes, but other times innocent orphans. They were dealing with Kaido in Wano, not only supporting the Beast Pirates as an organization, but strengthening them. In my opinion, this is all leading towards martial law. At some point, potentially soon, Akainu will have had enough, and he will intentionally break the shackle that is holding him back. Essentially, Akainu will pursue freedom, making him very similar to a pirate. And in my opinion, this freedom will give Akainu that extra step to surpass Aokiji, beyond the stalemate as I perceive it during the time skip. But it won't be until the world government is gone that Akainu will really be pursuing what he wants in the way that he wants, and this will make him stronger. So what exactly does Admiral level really mean? And just straight up, I think that this term is largely meaningless. I understand the point of them is to effectively communicate and clarify discussions of power scaling. But you've also got to live kind of in One Piece world reality as well. Power scaling in One Piece is dynamic. And to be accurate, I believe that your opinion has to be nuanced, meaning these labels only matter so much. People are asking, are we finally going to learn whether or not the Yonko are stronger than the Admirals if Luffy manages to defeat Kizaru here in Egghead? But it is entirely possible that when we meet Aokiji later as a member of the Blackbeard Pirates or Akainu as Fleet Admiral of the Marines, they far surpass our expectations generated from this fight against Kizaru in Egghead. Broad brushing it is, in my opinion, not a great strat. And it has a lot to do with Oda valuing narrative over most everything else. At some point, it comes down to who wants it more. And that is how Oda intentionally designed it. You can say that it doesn't make sense for Akainu or Aokiji to pull out hockey feats that they hadn't demonstrated earlier in the story. But if their will is strong enough and Oda desires it, I'm pretty sure he will give them what they need. This is a story about dreams and desires. Freely pursuing them empowers you. But of course, you guys know that I do have an opinion and essentially have stated my opinion throughout the course of this video. Aokiji has literally become a pirate, and I believe that is for his benefit. Likewise, I think that Akainu will establish the Marines as a pseudo-pirate crew, with himself as the captain, breaking away from the shackles of the government and the Celestial Dragons. I think that if this occurs, Akainu could very well be among the very strongest in the universe. Not just Yonko level, but in that tier above. But all this does really convey my belief that pirates are stronger. So to the OG debate, right, back in Marineford, Admirals greater than, equal to, or less than Yonko. Yeah, I think the Yonko were stronger. I think that the government, which as a faction was comprised of the Shichibukai, Pacifista, Cypherpole, and the Marines, including all three Admirals, was only just a little bit stronger than your strongest Yonko crews, which would power scales Admirals individually as lesser than to Yonko, even if their faction as a whole was individually the strongest, versus one Yonko crew. That's my opinion, take it or leave it. But while that may have once been true, that doesn't mean that it will always be true. Green Bull is largely considered a joke right now. I'm not sure that too many people know how to power scale Fujitora exactly, but ultimately I think that both would be behind Akainu if the Marines were to break out. Fujitora, as an example, has clearly established his disdain for pirates and the government's association with them. And I would tentatively promise you right now that Akainu is not going to be allying himself with any pirates. Thorough justice dictates that he will attempt to kill them all. So by the conclusion of the story, say the Marines are present in Laugh-Tale fighting against everybody else, I think that they will surpass your expectations. And I would guess that a lot of power scalers who adhere too tightly to these tier constructs wouldn't understand it even if it made sense. So maybe this was something worthy of speculating and saying. But anyway guys, I'm sure that a lot of people will have picked up on that I avoided a lot of the tedious discussion that surrounds specific combat feats, such as hockey and its permutations, because I largely think that a lot of this discussion is pointless. At the end of the day, a character will be as strong as Oda needs them to be to perform the role that he wants them to perform. No different than Lucci suddenly possessing a Devil Fruit Awakening after the time skip. So understanding and predicting that role is far more important than being caught up in the details of what they currently have demonstrated. At least if you are trying to form opinions about what may occur in the future. But you guys already know I can talk forever. This is an open form discussion. You are allowed to have an opinion and make a case for whatever it is that you believe. So share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to check out my book, The Booms. Volume 1 and 2 is out. Volume 3 is out October 4th, which is 4 days from the time that I'm recording this. Which means that it'll probably be out by the time that this video is live. I'm hoping that the end absolutely floors you. But generally, I just want to know what you guys think. So leave a review if you happen to read it. But yeah guys, like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always, have a wonderful day.